Every once in a while, a single sporting event comes along that's just more than a game. It grabs the world's attention, it taps into something happening in the culture, and it becomes a symbol for something a whole lot bigger. Well, back in 1973, one tennis match did exactly that, turning into a global showdown over gender, equality, and respect. So, who started this whole firestorm? It was one guy, Bobby Riggs. He was a former tennis champ from way back in the 40s. Now, at 55 years old, he pops back into the spotlight with this wild, outrageous claim that the women's game was so inferior, he could still, right now, beat any of its best players. And this idea of a man versus a woman on the court, it wasn't totally new. They'd had these exhibition matches before, and they called them the Battle of the Sexes. But what Riggs was about to do was turn this little concept into an absolute national spectacle. At the heart of this whole thing, you've got two people who could not be more different. On one side, there's Bobby Riggs, the aging showman, the hustler, who proudly called himself a male chauvinist pig. And on the other side, Billie Jean King. She's 29, at the absolute peak of her career, the founder of the Women's Tennis Association, and a fierce, passionate champion for women's rights. They were polar opposites. So Riggs goes public, and he makes his challenge loud and clear. See, he was a brilliant promoter, and he used the media to just relentlessly taunt female players. He argued they couldn't handle the pressure, they couldn't handle the skill, not even from a 55-year-old guy. Now, his first target was actually Billie Jean King, but she turned him down cold. She really wanted nothing to do with his circus act. But the challenge was just too juicy for another top player, Margaret Court, who at the time was the #1 ranked woman in the world. She said yes, she'd play him. And that acceptance, well, it sets the stage for the first and maybe the most important match in this whole saga. It was an event that got a pretty brutal nickname, the Mother's Day Massacre. And yeah, look at this score. It wasn't just a loss for Court, it was an absolute drubbing. 6-2, 6-1. Riggs didn't just beat her, he completely took her game apart. He used this crafty mix of lobs and little drop shots and just neutralized her power. It was a humiliating defeat. And just like that, Bobby Riggs wasn't some forgotten champion anymore. He was a superstar. His victory gave all his chauvinistic claims this dangerous credibility. Suddenly, he's on the cover of magazines, his taunts are getting louder, and the pressure on women's tennis was just massive. Okay, so with Riggs's win over Court, the stakes just went through the roof. Promoters put together this huge winner-take-all $100,000 match. It was going to be at the Houston Astrodome. And now, all eyes turned to one person, Billie Jean King. This time, she knew she couldn't say no. She had to accept. And just look at this. This shows you exactly what a circus this whole thing became. This wasn't just a tennis match. It was pure spectacle. King comes in like Cleopatra, carried on a litter by a bunch of shirtless guys. Riggs shows up in a rickshaw, pulled by a team of models he called his bosom buddies. This was primetime entertainment. And the showmanship, it just didn't stop. Riggs got paid a fortune to wear this sugar daddy jacket during the match. Before they even started, he walks over and gives King this giant lollipop. So what does she do? In a brilliant move, she gives him a live, squealing piglet. So how did she win? Well, the key thing to understand is that King didn't just walk out there to play tennis. She had a plan. She studied what happened to Court and realized she couldn't play her normal, super aggressive game. So instead, she decided to stay back, control the baseline, and just run the 55-year-old Riggs ragged, side to side, all over the court. And that strategy, it worked. Perfectly. She beat him in straight sets, 6-4, 6-3, 6-3. It wasn't even close, really. It was a clear, decisive victory. In front of the entire world, Billie Jean King had done it. She had silenced Bobby Riggs. But look, the story doesn't just end with the final score. The real legacy of this match is what happened after and what it came to mean for millions and millions of people. I mean, to really get a sense of the scale here, just look at this number. 90 million people worldwide. An estimated 50 million in the US alone. This was one of the most watched TV events of its time, period. And it wasn't just a TV thing either. The crowd inside the Astrodome was over 30,000 people, which is still the record for the largest crowd to ever watch a tennis match in the United States. This was a true cultural moment.
And this quote from Billie Jean King herself, man, it just gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? She felt the weight of an entire movement on her shoulders. For her, this was never about the prize money. It was about proving the legitimacy of women's sports and fighting for the self-worth of women everywhere.
Now, of course, a win this big is going to have some controversy. Some critics just brushed it off, saying, well, she only won because he was 26 years older. And then, years later, this really serious allegation came out that Riggs might have thrown the match on purpose to pay off a huge gambling debt. For what it's worth, Billie Jean King has always been adamant that Riggs did not tank the match and that she won fair and square. So while the King-Riggs showdown is definitely the most famous one, it was hardly the only battle of the sexes in tennis. The whole idea seems to have this lasting appeal.
Yeah, over the years, we've seen a few other big ones pop up. Back in '92, you had Jimmy Connors beating Martina Navratilova. Then, in 1998, a male pro ranked way outside the top 200 beat a teenage Venus and Serena Williams back-to-back. And even more recently, Nick Kyrgios defeated Aryna Sabalenka in 2025. It just shows the format keeps drawing people in.
And all of this really brings us to one final big question, right? Here we are, more than 50 years after King and Riggs made history, and this idea of a direct athletic contest between a man and a woman. It still fascinates us. It's a spectacle, for sure. But maybe it also just taps into these ongoing conversations we have about physical differences, about athletic equality, and really about the very nature of sports itself.